A week ago, President Trump announced a $12 billion aid package to help farmers impacted by the so-called trade war. Several Democratic lawmakers criticized the bill, saying farmers wanted a harvest, not a check.
A number of Republicans echoed those sentiments as well. So what do farmers really think? Talk more about this and the impact that tariffs are having is Dale Moore. He is the Deputy Executive Director for the American Farm Bureau Federation. We're glad to have you here, Dale. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So when they talk about $12 billion in aid, what does that actually mean? How is that distributed?
Well, there's a very complicated formula that Secretary Perdue, USDA Secretary Perdue, has put together working with his team internally. They're going to be looking at a number of factors, but they've got to sort out what is normal market volatility that goes in and out of a typical commodity, because farmers don't set the price. They take the price at home. The marketplace is setting it. And so when you go through that process, they've got to calculate how much of the impact up or down in a market is due to trade, how much is due to this particular trade war.
And on that $12 billion, is that going to go to farmers of all commodities, or is it targeted specifically at soybean farmers? Is it across the board?
As we understand it right now, there are three different components to it. One is some direct payments of a sort to farmers, some direct assistance. This temporary package is aimed at cotton, corn, soybeans, wheat, dairy, and pork products. I maybe have skipped over one or two in the payments direct to farmers. There's also a component that will buy commodities to distribute to feeding programs like senior feeding programs, school lunch, soup kitchens, et cetera, kind of an approach. And then there's a market promotion component to it that is going to apply to virtually all commodities. But when you look at the Chinese tariff list, virtually every commodity in this country that we export is on that list.
Is impacted.
How urgent is this aid package? I mean, let's just walk some folks through this. If the president did not do this, and there's criticism really from both sides of the aisle for this, but even Republicans and conservatives are saying this feels like a bailout, picking winners and losers. So there's some pushback. How urgent is the need for this package for farmers? What would happen if the president just said, look, the market's the market?
Well, first I want to point out it is not a bailout. Farmers did not create this situation. China created it by targeting agriculture over a fight that China and the United States are having on other issues.
President
just
instigated, let's just say.
But it's not farmers' fault. So we can agree
definitely not farmers' fault.
Put that part out there. The second part of this is that when you go through this process, our members are telling us straight up, we would much rather have the trade restored, have the markets back in place, but we don't have that option. And farmers have two basic partners. They've got Mother Nature, who is unpredictable day in and day out, but they've got another partner, most farmers do, that is very predictable, and that's their banker. And their banker is very consistent about wanting to be paid at the end of the marketing year. And so when you start this process up, farmers plant in the fall for some crops, in the spring for others.
Right.
They harvest. So it's not like they can make a business decision to say, well, maybe I'm not going to raise as many soybeans or as much wheat this year, or as many head of cattle because the market changed.
They're already 6 months ahead in terms of their planning.
Yes, and they've got to have a good return this year to pay off their debts so that they can survive to go into next year, because they've got to start this all over come next fall or next spring.
How much has this trade war hurt farmers, and how much does the $12 billion, does that go a long way towards easing that pain, or is that a drop in the bucket?
Well, I think it is, from the standpoint of temporary assistance, I think it's got to be a good number. I don't think that given, the conservative nature of the president and his team and Secretary Perdue, that they would have come up with $12 billion just out of the largesse of feeling good. They've done some calculations. Their chief economist has done a ton of work trying to figure this out, and this is the number they came up with. Now, how much it does ameliorate the impacts of the tariffs going into the fall, that's something we're having a hard time predicting. And we're looking forward to the details that are coming out in late August to know more about how this was calculated.
Gotcha.
Do we have any sense of what the benefits would be longer term? Right now, short term, there's pain. China is targeting not just farm communities, but specifically those communities that might have an effect on the midterm election, right? So we know that this is now in the realm of geopolitics, soybeans and all these other things we're talking about here. But over the long-term projection, if Trump is successful in renegotiating some of these trade deals with a whole bunch of different partners, would the markets being more open have a market benefit for these producers that are currently targeted? Is there some sense that if they can just wait out this storm, things will be better for farmers in the long term?
Well, I think you have to understand that it may be better for some farmers in the long term, but some of the farmers that are currently engaged in agriculture may not be around to take
got bills to
advantage of
pay.
that. They
Yeah.
got bills to pay. Secretary Perdue himself made the point, you can't pay bills with patriotism. And we understand the battle that is going on other fronts. It's just, we're targeted. So we got to figure out, and we appreciate this temporary assistance, but we'd much rather get back to the trade front. If we have the opportunity to trade, it's why agriculture has a surplus. This is why China's targeting us. We had a surplus in trade with China. They want our products. It's taken years to get those markets established. So, we're not talking about getting this restored in 2 or 3 months once the fight stops. It's going to take years to get back to where we've been.
Let me ask you this, putting aside this current trade battle, farm income has fallen by half in the past several years.
Yeah.
What is the number one thing that we could do to help farmers, especially family farmers?
Well, one of the things this is another part of why we do farm bills. The House and Senate have both completed their floor action on their respective farm bills. We're anticipating the Senate getting their conferees named, this week so we can move into the conference to get those bills reconciled. And we're kind of excited about that because this is the first time in I can't remember the last time that Congress actually got both the House and Senate farm bills done before the current farm bill expired. And we've still got to the end of September to get this one done. That's one of the tools that helps farmers weather the volatility in the markets, Mother Nature, et cetera. But we've also got to get these trades, restored. It's one thing when you've got a little bit of trade that always puts a little gravy on things, but when you've got commodities that 20%, 40%, 60% of what we produce in this country gets exported, certainly in certain regions, you take that away, it doesn't take very long for the bankers to shut you down.
Yeah. All right.
Dale.
Dale, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Great to have your insights.
Nice to have you all on the farm.
Thank you, sir. Next up on Rising, Hill.tv's Jamal Simmons on his one-on-one conversation with House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. She covers her time as a leader and a whole lot more.
And later on, with more primaries on the way, what does the 2018 midterm landscape look like? We have a top expert opinion from the Cook Political Report's national editor, Amy Walters. Stay tuned.